The Pain of Duality. Written by Resident Sunshine. Read to you by Evie is Evil. Chapter 13. Summary. Tim and Peter both conduct some research. Mark is a worried dad of 6, and JJ finally gets his hands on the journal. Author's notes. I did a lot of POV switching this chapter. I tried to break it up with the lines, but if you get confused with it, please let me know so I can clarify. Reader's notes. I hope it's clear. Honestly, the point of view switches just kind of blend quite naturally in this fic. I found myself naturally kind of changing to the tone of that character, but sometimes I don't. I don't know. Anyways, let's get on with the fic. Tim set a mental timer for himself before he headed out. Notebook tucked safely in his bag and camera over his shoulders. He would have to wait for the arachnid-themed hero and hope he came out tonight. While he waited, though, he had a lot to write down, to process, to piece together. A lot that he just needed to get in writing before they grew too fuzzy and distant. He perched himself up on another precarious ledge, one a normal human should not be able to get to, and scanned the horizon line for any signs of any hero activity. It was weirdly quiet. Too quiet. Perhaps he missed something? He was so disconnected from the wider world now, especially without his phone, without a reliable source of news. Tim shook his head. He needed to be alert, not getting hung up over something so arbitrary. He laid out his notebook and let his eyes wander over the colored pens. It was odd. He always chose the same color, always black, because it was simple, to the point. Yet he still carried the small pack with him, still found notes in other colors. He flipped through his entries since coming to this earth, scanning the text. Most of it was with red and atrocious handwriting, or his familiar scrawl of fine black, each letter near perfect. He must have been tired when he chose red, or desperate to get the information out there. That didn't explain the notes to himself in flowing text, using vibrant colors each time. Never the same 2 days in a row, but each time it was signed off with a little heart. Usually a reminder about something like needing to eat more, or making sure he went to sleep. Except for one. He paused, eyes tracing the familiar flowing text that called Red a dipstick cunt. Tim furrowed his brows, looking over the note again before flipping to the next page, which was, expectantly, in red too. But this time, the tip pressed so hard it threatened to tear at the pages. Not on any of the lines, but rather diagonally across it. Harsh font that was so different from the previous red. He flipped past traded insults, something tugging at him, building and rolling beneath his sternum. It was odd. He had read his journal over and over again, like a scrawling prayer, and yet he had somehow always missed these pages? And what the hell was half these words? The vibrant ones were quite interesting, and the red font had enough curses that Alfred would probably have a heart attack. He flipped through until a vibrant orange told him about living with Layla. A spark of recognition at least came from that one, less like a stranger who got into an insult war with another within the pages of his journal. But why? And how? This was a new one, a gift from Duke right before he came over here. He flipped again, feeling like maybe something was on the tip of his tongue, like a long-lost memories about to breach the surface. The ones after that were much less coherent, but timeline-wise, he supposed that was when he started getting really sick. The messy red one was mostly dotted down random thoughts on different companies, and which one was most likely to help him on his personal quest. At least one of them was on track. Them? Tim shook his head, dismissing any lingering weird feelings. He had a mission to complete. He flipped back to the sections on companies, scanning his Oscorp notes. They probably wouldn't help him get home, but he should still check them out. Something seemed rather fishy there, especially after his encounter with them. At least, past him thought so. At least the messy scrawl was familiar. Usually what he tended to fall into when on a mission, or doing a report he didn't remember. Jack would be so disappointed in how messy his handwriting was. Years of training, of classes, hours spent writing again and again and again, until his hands were raw, till... Tim shook his head again. It felt like the memory was immediately locked away, like it was behind a barrier he couldn't quite reach. He kicked his feet over the edge and pressed his palms into his eye sockets. Pain blossomed in his skull when he tried to focus on the memory. He could only vaguely recollect the tutor and a ruler, and how he couldn't quite take photos for a while after, because his hands were injured and shaky. Surely they weren't related. He would remember if something happened. He probably got stuck in the middle with the rogue attack. He did that occasionally. But why did it feel almost like that happened to someone else? Like he was told a story long forgotten? Tim forced his hands back down, pulling out his printed pages of research. Something nagging at him. Something that was wrong. Right? He glanced back at his journal. 4 distinct, different patterns. But how did it all fit together? Before Tim could even continue down that thought process, Spider-Man was popping up beside him. Tim nearly threw his collection of shit at the arachnid-themed hero, but managed to stop at the very last second. Unfortunately, the same could not be said for the inhuman noise that escaped him, on being jump-scared like that. At least this time he was saved the embarrassment of having to be caught with the massive webs. Peter winced as he spooked the other teen, but kept his smile up regardless. "Hey, what are you doing up here?" He leaned forward, getting a better look at Tim. "More late-night photography?" Peter drummed his fingers along the ledge lightly, an even pattern that helped him stay focused. He tried to show that he wasn't on edge, that Tony hadn't given him a very professional mission to gather intel on a possible threat. Tried not to think how MJ might just have the biggest "I told you so." He watched Tim fidget with his journal and pens before shoving them back in his bag. Took note of his elevated heart rate, the shaking hands, the eyes looking everywhere but at him. Definitely Tim. The fear of spiders was enough to cement that. Unless one also was afraid of spiders? He supposed he didn't actually know. "Oh, yeah, I guess." Tim took a grounding breath, slowly letting it out as he tried to relax his tense muscles. "I was also hoping to run into you, I suppose." "Oh, really?" Peter rocked back, trying to hold back on the urge to climb the wall, to move and stretch. He didn't think Tim could handle any reminders about how unnatural he was right now. Not while sitting on a ledge, too high up for Peter's comfort. "Yeah." Tim paused as he looked down at his camera, pulling his bottom lip between his teeth. Something about him screamed anxiety. Was he in danger? Peter would get to the bottom of this. "Yeah, I really enjoyed our chat last time. I haven't met anyone else who actually understands or follows my rants about photography and lenses." "Oh, no way. It's all super cool. I haven't been into it as much recently, the whole hero thing and all, but it's always been a passion. When I was little, I always wanted to go to college for it. Go become some renowned nature photographer." Peter shifted so he could pull one leg up and under him, truly struggling to not be moving around. At least it was summertime, so the gentle breeze was nothing dangerous, even as the sun was setting. He watched as Tim pulled his camera to his face, adjusting some settings. "What do you like to photograph the most?" Peter tried offering, though with the amount of skyline photos, he could get an idea. Tim thought for a moment, thinking to the photos he truly loved. The ones where Cassie was riding on Bart's shoulders, wide smile on her face as Bart prepared to go do a lap around the country with her, despite the repeated concern of Wally. The one that he had captured where Damien was drawing, Head rested back on Bat Cow and a soft smile on his face, unaware of the lens focused on him and just existing. How he would giggle lightly as Alfred the cat would bat at his pencil, an emotion that Tim never truly got to see from the youngest. Con, laid out on the field, hair tousled and clothes dirtied, blades of wheat fanning out around him as he laid in the setting sun, the golden hues nearly reflective off his black sunglasses. Duke, radiating atop an old building in Gotham, out of place in the sense that he deserved more, like a god among men, smile easy and glow flickering like radiant rays beneath his dark skin. He loved photography, but more than anything, he loved capturing those he loved, capturing the moments so that even when his memories failed him, he always had a little something. My friends and family. Little moments to capture them in, reminders for what I have to fight for. Tim snapped a photo, repeating the process. They weren't good enough, too saturated nor radiant enough. Do you ever look back at your photos just to remember? It was a prying question, to see if that was why Jake had chosen him for this mission, memory problems and all, or if Spider-Man was even the right target. Who else could it be? Yeah, I do. A lot, actually. The other hero offered. He sounded so young at that moment, so vulnerable. My friend has a lot of memory problems, so it really helps them too. Tim shifted so he could face the other, though he kept his eyes trained on his camera as he fidgeted with some of the settings. New York was much different than his photography in Gotham. He had to adjust for the lack of toxins and pollution, and for the increase in sun despite its setting. Or maybe it was just a convenient excuse to avoid eye contact. Whichever way, he didn't know why he used the dumb friend lie, and it was obvious it was a lie with the pause, but something recoiled at sharing that vulnerability. He had to remind himself that not every mission could be solved with the fist or word problem. Some required that vulnerability. Do you ever look at your old photos and feel like that's not you? Like maybe something changed? Tim tried, but he was floundering out here, not really sure what he was supposed to be doing. But at least you could say he gave it an honest shot. A good old classic try. Peter stared at Tim a moment. He was supposed to be getting information, figuring out what level threat the other was. But seeing him up here, curled up in a Crafton jacket that was most definitely not his, he just looked small, vulnerable, pained. Maybe it was the pale skin, the eye bags that were practically forming bruises at this point, the way he tucked in like he didn't know he deserved to take up space. If someone was forcing him, manipulating him, Peter was going to get to the bottom of it and help. For now, he had to gain their trust so they would feel safe coming to him. So he offered a happy smile, despite the mask covering it. Yeah, I guess I can. Because in a way he could. Looking at pre-bite photos, it was hard to connect them to himself now. Hard to remember what life was like back then. Though he had a feeling that maybe that's not what Tim was getting to. I see. Tim hummed out, and Peter watched him flick through the same settings again. Probably a motion of comfort over actual need. You have a good support network going? People you can lean on? I do. I have a wonderful aunt who adopted me, and a whole little fountain family who would adopt me in a heartbeat if she didn't. I also just got a new brother, which, boy, has that been a ride. Though I think technically he is older than me. It's a weird little thing. How about you? Peter was trying to find the connection between the odd questions, but was turning up blank. So he offered a taste of truth, but kept it vague enough to still hide his identity. Yeah, I think I do. I have a whole group of siblings, both older and younger. Tim started, thinking over the question, rolling it around in his mouth before going to respond more. But can you rely on them? Shut up, voice in Tim's head. Now is not the time to go on a mental spiral. If he was dying, they would come. But would they? Who came last time? Who came when Joker had you strapped up? Who came when you were about to get exploded? Who came when Roz was grooming you? Shut up. Tim closed his eyes tightly, trying to block it out as he grit his teeth. But they were right. He always dropped everything to help the Bat-Clan out. But how often did they do the same? Even just before he came here, when he was falling apart at the seams, who offered a hand? Not Bruce, who yelled at him and blamed him for Jason's second death. Not Dick, who gave him looks of pity and told him to just drop it. Not Steph, who called him delusional. Duke? Duke believed him, but his brother was always nice. Always there for him, even when he felt his mind slipping away. Always there to believe him, even when the world seemed to not. But is he here? Or do you just burden him? Tim hated when the voice was angry, when it was rude. Honestly, he should know by now how to block them out, how to ignore them. But sometimes they had good ideas, and it helped Tim process what he was feeling. Like right now, it was just bringing word to the deep-lying issue of feeling like he was never enough, never part of the family, just a side note, someone who forced their way in. It's time you look out for yourself. Put you first, since no one else will. I also have a group of close friends, Tim pushed on, ignoring the groan in his head that made it throb. He almost felt like a scolded child. He pushed on. He already made himself look crazy to Spider-Man. He really didn't need to add on more and risk being classified as clinically insane. That's good, the hero added, but his white lenses were slightly narrowed. Was it concern? Anger? Confusion? Frustration? Tim couldn't tell based off only the lenses. They were expressive, which honestly was amazing tech that he wanted to get his hands on, to pull apart and reverse engineer. His fingers twitched in his lap, forcing his eyes back out over the skyline. What was he going to say? What was he doing? Sorry, what were we talking about? He watched the white lenses narrow, before blinking back open to regular size. At least it made him feel less judged, less like he was being scrutinized. Oh, you were telling me about your friends? Tim shuddered as he watched the arachnid hero shift to crack his neck and fingers, joints bending way too far to be human. It very suddenly reminded him once again of the spider part. He wondered if he had other spider traits. Like, was his skin an exoskeleton? Hardened and supporting him? It reminded him of the exoskeleton he's working on designing with Wayne Enterprise, but couldn't get the other board members to back him on. A wearable tech that helped support a person's weight and movement. He had hoped to get funding to make it more affordable, but he supposed he could start up another branched charity to help with it. Just meant more on his already full plate. He knew he used webs, but did he spin them himself? Were they made of the same silken fibers that spiderweb was? It would make sense that at that thickness they could easily support human weight. Support way more than that. Did his limbs have multiple joints to them? He still wasn't sure he didn't have more limbs hidden away. Did they bend at multiple places, or did he just have extra mobility at the pre-existing joints? All right, Tim? Tim blinked a few times, focusing back on the other hero. Sorry, what was that? You seem a bit out of it. Are you feeling all right? Oh, yeah, I'm golden, just coming down from being sick, but that's okay. My mom... Tim paused, shook his head, dismissing the odd thought. Sorry, my roommate helped me out a lot with that. Though she's probably going to be upset that I'm not inside an actual bubble to protect me. I'm mostly fine. I'm back on my antibiotics, and that honestly made it a lot better. Just need to pay more attention to myself. Tim looked back out at the skyline, snapping a photo as he caught a familiar white-clad figure a few blocks away. He glanced down at the photo. It almost looked like they were looking at him. Probably just caught the other's eye. He glanced back up and couldn't see them, but he couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on him. Good old bat paranoia. Besides, he had bigger fish to fry. Like why he was suddenly more fascinated than scared of a human-sized spider, and why he was calling Layla Mum. Not even Mom? It was embarrassing. Like when a student slips up and calls their teacher Mom, but for some reason, British. Even more important, though, was the mission. He filed that away with the strange fighting in the book, and the intrusive thoughts that didn't even sound like him, because the more he thought about it, the more his head throbbed and the more fuzzy he felt, both of which were not good right now. He couldn't afford to lose more time, not after being off his feet sick for so long. Tim? Sorry, do you know who this is? I've seen them a few times around here. Tim flipped his camera around for the other to look at. I think it's Moon something? He goes around the world, so I never really interacted with him. Iron Man actually heavily advised against interacting with him, which hasn't been hard because I tend to stick to my little area. You know, helping the little guy out. So you've said. Tim leaned back and cast his eyes to the sky instead. He wondered if these heroes had a space station too, or a wide network that traveled the cosmos. So, you said you just got a new brother? Tell me about him. Are you excited? Is he an ugly baby? Peter nearly choked on his own spit as he barked out a laugh at the idea. Jason was probably a cute baby, but he couldn't help the image of an angry, chunky baby, fueled by spite and lack of sleep. Oh, no, he's adopted? Technically not officially yet. It's a messy custody battle between my dad and uncle. It's complicated, but it's been fun. I really love spending time with him. He went through a lot of really hard things and is still sort of learning how to be cared for and what having family is all about. He makes the best food, though. Think cooking is his way of showing he cares. Peter couldn't help but smile wide as he thought about Jason. We actually met with him saving me from this multi-dimensional vampire asshole. Well, sort of helping. He's a bit more squishy than I am, but he doesn't let that stop him. He drummed his fingers on his knees as he shifted to kick them out over the ledge again, keeping a cautious eye on Tim. The teen had been acting off all night, kept associating and spacing out, talking to himself. He was concerned, especially since he now knew he, or one of them, was probably working for Oscorp and Hydra. It would make sense why he disappeared at Oscorp. He didn't want to think about that. Right now, he needed to earn his trust so he could come to him if he was being forced, or blackmailed, or anything that he hoped for over actually willfully working for them. He's a bit younger than me, but not so much as my sister is. He didn't know how much information he should give away. Tony had warned that this might involve Jason, but he didn't want to offer him up on a silver platter to a threat either. He kept an eye on Tim, watching him stare off into the distance, before shaking his head again. Didn't look like he was actually paying that much attention, honestly. I'm actually trying to plan out a whole bunch of things to do with him. He hasn't done much, so I want to help him experience living. Trying to sell our dad on Disney still, though. He says it's asking for problems. Disney? Peter looked over at the wide-eyed stare he was getting, the sudden shift in posture. He wasn't hunched over and shrinking, but turned, fully engaged, like he didn't care that he was taking up space. It was an odd shift, but maybe Tim was just super passionate about the media conglomerate? Or, that wasn't Tim. Peter liked to think he was getting a bit better at this, but he also knew it was typically something triggering that would bring out a switch. Maybe weirdly specific Disney drama? Cut him some slack, he was trying here. Yeah, Disney. Have you ever been, kiddo? Peter shifted a bit closer, testing the waters. They shook their head aggressively before blinking harshly a few times, probably a bit dizzy. Maybe Peter should try to get them off the ledge of a building.
No, I don't get to go to any fun parks. One time we went to Amusement Mile. Well, Robin was chasing Daddy, but Bruce got real upset with me. I guess it wasn't that type of park, or maybe I was just too much. He doesn't like me very much, but that's okay. Oh, tell me all about Disney. Is it really, really, really big? Are there lots of rides? Oh, do they have cool balloons shaped like all sorts of things?
Peter spread his hands out in front of him, unable to suppress his smile at the pure joy. How could Tony think that they were evil? It was obvious they went through some things. And honestly, Peter thinks it must just be a thing with the name Bruce. Between this kid's Bruce, who he wasn't exactly sure the relation of, if they were chasing his dad, and Jason's old dad, Bruce. At least Bruce Banner could give some positive connotations to the name. And where was Amusement Mile? Might help him figure out more about them if he knew where they were from. Wow! Easy there. Why don't we grab a snack, and you can ask all your questions then. I'll try to answer the best I can, since I also have never gone before.
Ugh, okay, fine. But can we get hot dogs? Or funnel cake? Ooh, or corn dogs?
JJ stood up quickly, stumbling a bit, and found himself in Peter's arms. He blinked a few times, vision still spotty, but the world feeling a bit more solidly under him.
Oh, I bet Timmy would love Disney. She can be a very pretty princess, but I don't think he would want to come out for that. Or actually get dolled up. Oh, maybe in... Did you know that SS stands for boats, historically steam-powered that use a screw propeller? It can also stand for Susan Storm, but she let Ugly Richards ruin her name. Though, I guess SSR can stand for the Southern Short Haul Railroad in Australia. That's what Carrie told me when she said I was being too mean.
He stuck out his tongue as he grabbed the bag and everything Tim had left out. Tim could be so messy sometimes. His eyes caught on the bright pens, and he grabbed out the purple one, in the journal that Robin told him not to write in. But it was important. He had important things to say, too. Peter watched a moment, staying close to JJ, but staying relatively quiet, before finally piping up. JJ?
Yep.
JJ popped his pea as he spread back everything on the ledge they were sitting on, trying to find some different colors as he doodled on a random empty page. Are you in danger? Anyone hurting or threatening you? Peter figured he should get right to the point, figuring, if anything, the kid would probably move on from the question. But instead, he froze for a moment, eyes fixed on the page, but no longer doodling what looked to be like a family portrait?
No, not with Mum. She helps protect us from the scary people.
JJ finally offered, slowly putting everything away again, despite not finishing his drawing.
I don't think Daddy is here, but sometimes I still see him, and... Why? Are you going to? Is someone else? Because I need to know if someone is. It's my job. I need to protect him.
No, no one is. It's okay, JJ. I'm a hero, remember? I can protect you. Peter tried to offer, but he could already see JJ locking down. He thinks he might have overstepped, which honestly was a terrible way to start this off. Especially because he did genuinely enjoy talking with Tim and spending time with him. He didn't want to scare them away, especially if something nefarious was going on that they were getting caught up in.
Yeah, I suppose, but so is Robin and Tim.
Oh? Peter guessed that made sense. The whole X-Men thing and all. Though he did wonder why they seemed to stop wearing the hoodie recently, after wearing it for so long. Maybe traded for whoever's Crafton that was? He supposed probably Mum's, or Layla's? Just another bit of information he tucked away that felt like it may be important one day.
Yeah, I think I should get going home soon.
Let me walk you? Peter really didn't want to release JJ by himself, even if he could, in theory, get around on his own. Call it his intuition, or maybe just guilt for shutting them down so fully.
Okay, but can we still get food?
Peter offered a smile, despite it being hidden. Of course. Want me to swing us down there? JJ seemed to beam at that. Small victories. And Peter didn't mind the company, the questions, the wonder and awe, because it meant at least they were going to be okay. Maybe tomorrow he could try to get more information. But for now, he focused on entertaining the little altar and satisfying all his curiosities that he could. Later, he could focus on Tony's side quest. Later, he could deal with the fallout. He just hoped his mentor and father figure was wrong, jumped to the wrong conclusion. And that is the end of Chapter 13 of The Pain of Duality. Author's notes. Peter. Where do you live?
JJ. It's right up here. Turn left.
Peter. Here? JJ.
Oh, left?
In other words, JJ has no idea where they actually live now, and definitely dragged Peter around just to swing on his whip more. Cue Mark desperately running after them while Kanji laughs at him. I sped through the JJ part because I wanted more of the focus to be on Tim and Peter. Also, Peter in fact does not catch him in the next night, or any nights for quite some time. He will be back though. Next time, Red forces them to do something for them. Layla just wants her kids to be okay, and Mark gets a much-needed nap after running around New York all night, trying to keep up with a web slinger. Also, can we all say, Tim, you sweet summer child, do some introspection. He is so close to connecting the dots. He's getting there, slowly but surely. Side note, in one of my side stories, The Misadventures of One Peter Parker and Jason Todd, you get to see some of those side quests, and it will end with Disney, where I will probably do a Jason-focused part and a Tim-focused part. It's super slow to update though, so maybe a while. Now on to reader's notes. This one was fun. I forgot how much I enjoyed doing the voices in this fic. I honestly love how many characters there are, and just like the diversity I get to switch between doing them. A line I really liked was, what was it? There was one line where I think it was like a co-front between Tim and JJ. And it was like JJ starting to peek out, so I'm like, I'm going to do a voice. It's like Tim at the beginning of the sentence, but then it shifts into but then it shifts into JJ. Yeah. This fic is so fun to do those things. Editor's note. Twice there was the word kaftan or kaftan, and I said craftan. It's my bad. It's a form of like dress wear. It's almost like a poncho, but not really. My bad. I didn't mean to mispronounce that. And things you're hearing about Jason and Peter being like brothers and stuff, that is all in Stray Little Bat, which is the original series, but they're both kind of like sister fics, and they all like intertwine at certain points. And I might do Stray Little Bat at some point. The more I'm rereading this, the more I'm like, ooh, I probably should. But I've already got a lot of longer fics going on at the moment. I may consider doing it after this fic finishes, but no promises. But it is a really good story if you want to go check it out. Is that the ending note? I think that is all I have to say for today. So, without further ado, thank you guys for listening, and bye!